All right, so we're going to start to have a look at how we can texture some assets using Megascans in Unreal. This is a simple way to do things. It's an easy way, and because we're all working remotely, we've now got access to Bridge and the Megascans that we wouldn't have available to us in college. So if you can see here, I have a test level, and I've got some assets that I've brought in. Now, what I've done is we've got this portal here. I've put it together. It's a basic mesh in 3ds Max. It looks okay, but if you look here, what I've done is I've auto UV unwrapped it. So I've used the auto function within Substance Painter. As you can see, yeah, great. It didn't take me any time. I just removed all of the UVs and materials and then opened it up in Substance Painter, and it did it automatically. But I've got all this no straight lines. And this is a bit of a problem because it's going to have some funny sort of results when we bring textures in. But I'll show you how we can get around this stuff. But unfortunately, you're still going to have to UV unwrap stuff properly if you want to use procedural textures that tile and not hand crafted, as it were. If we just have a quick look at this area here. Now I'm going to open up Bridge, and we've got it here. This is Bridge. It's made by Quixel. It's an accompaniment to Mixer, and it allows us to download all of the assets and then import them directly into Unreal. So I've already downloaded some, and you can see I've downloaded this metal panels, this checkered metal sheet, and then some decals, some atlases, some leakage, some cracked asphalt here, and a ventilation flap. So those are the assets that I've downloaded. I've literally just kept it on the defaults, set 4K resolution, and hit export, making sure that my project is open. My UE4 project is open so that it goes directly into that project. Here we go. We can see we've got the Megascans folder here. So this is after you've imported them. You have a Megascans folder. This is if you've set up the plugin correctly. So you should always look for a green button up at the top. Follow the instructions on the Quixel website to be able to install the plugin. It's quite straightforward. Just make sure that you select the plugins directory in UE4, your UE4 install, and it will just install itself in there and work pretty much straight away. Okay, so we've got some Megascans here. One of them is a surface, and here's the metal panels that I've downloaded. Now they're instances. So if we can drag that on, drop it there, and you can see what's happening. Look, we've got strange shapes. Let's just change the light angle so we can see that a bit better. There we go. All right, so we can see it's not quite straight and it's sort of banding around. So the auto stuff or the auto-generated UVs is generally not going to give you the type of results you want when you're working with procedural textures. So we've got another asset here. This is one that I've properly UV'd, and we'll see the sort of results that this can get. We'll put that there, and literally it's a question of Megascan surfaces, metal panels, just dragging it in, and there we go. Everything is properly aligned as we would hope it would be. Yeah, it looks okay. That's absolutely fine. But the problem we've got now is that it's all one object. We could just bring in multiple objects and position them together with textures each, and that might be something that you want to do to save some time. But let's say we wanted to take one asset, a big thing like this, and then break it up and put different textures on different parts. So this is fairly straightforward, but we need to do this in 3ds Max. And what we're doing is we're going to start to define material IDs. So the way to do that, we go back to our model. I'll just collapse that to editable poly. What we would do, select the polygons. Now I'd enable well, let's select all of the polygons that we want to make a particular texture. So if I take those, I'm just going around selecting them all, selecting multiple by clicking on them and holding the control. Do the same that way. So I've selected all of those polygons. Now I'm going to scroll down, wait till I find set ID, and I'm just going to put ID 2 and enter. Okay, so I've set everything that's currently selected to the ID of 2. Now, because everything else should be 1, if I select ID and press 1, because it would be 1 by default, we've selected not entirely everything. All right, so let's do this. We'll select all of these polygons. Yeah, select all of those, holding down Control to select them all. And there we go. So we've got all of those. And then I'm going to set that to 1. There you go. So we've got 1. If I select ID, type 1 in there, click on select. That's all of those. If I select ID 2, click on select. So that sets those. So I could use 3, could use 4, could use however many I wanted, and set different IDs to apply different textures to different elements. Now, if you want this to work, if I was to export that now and just bring it into UE4 and apply the texture to it, it's not going to work. There's one other thing you need to do, and you do need to apply materials to it. So I've opened up the material editor, press M, and the way we do that is we're going to bring in a where is it? Multi-sub-object material. We'll put it there. Now I'm going to get 2 materials and put them into channels 1 and 2, and they'll correspond to the IDs that we've got here. Now they need to be different, so I'll bring in a physical material and plug that one into 1. And then I'll bring that down. I will change the color slightly on that one just so that we know it's working. And then we'll plug that into 2. And then if we deselect that, and then just drag and drop that onto the mesh, we can see we've got 2 different materials. So we've got a darker color here and a gray here. If we just change that around, you'll be able to see that change. Bring that down. There you go. So we've got 2 materials applied to it. Okay, then if we bring that into, so we're just going to select the object, go File, Export, Export Selected. What will happen is you'll bring that into, I've already done it, so I've got an object here, this element that I brought in with the IDs applied. If we now open the mesh, so I'm going to double click on it to open it, what you'll notice is you've got 2 material slots now, rather than just the 1. If we were to open, let's browse to asset, open up that one, yeah, we've just got the 1, our base material. With that one, we've got the 2. So now we can put materials into each material slot, and they will correspond to the areas, the polygons that we've labeled 1 or 2. We set a material ID of 1 or 2. So we go to surfaces, we'll go to metal panels here, we'll take that one and dump that in there. Okay, so that goes up all over the top, but if we notice down here in the background, that's still our default, you can see it here, still our default texture. Now if we look at the next one, the checkered metal, so we've got this type of pattern here, and we can drag that on. Let's just open that up again. Let's drag that in. Megascans, surfaces, checkered metal, take the instance, drop that in there, and there we go. We've got the 2 different textures applied to the object. Okay, so that's good. I'll just stop that up there for now. In fact, we don't need that actually. But what we will do, you can open up that now because we're this is an instance and we're working on the Quixel master material, same as the landscape master materials, very similar. We can play around with a lot of the properties. We can rotate everything. I'll just set that back, or we can play around with the tiling. You know, currently it's set to 10. Set it to 1, it gets much bigger. 10. 10, okay, and then it will set the tiling as we wish. Also, we can play around with the albedo tint. We can make adjustments and sort of change the color to suit. We'll keep it like that. Okay, so that's how we would change a particular part of a mesh by assigning it a material ID and then making sure we apply some textures, importing the model. I mean, that's literally just a question of going File, Import, and then navigating to the gate with material ID. Yeah, pretty much keep that on its defaults. You might want to combine meshes if you've got lots of elements within your mesh, but generally not doing it this way, and then bring it in and just drag it on and apply your textures, just literally drag and drop. And then you've got your base textures. So the next thing we want to do is, hey, we'll think, no, maybe that's a little bit flat. Yeah, it all looks very similar, all looks very uniform. Yeah, and procedural textures, that's what's going to happen. They're just going to tile and repeat everywhere. So we do want to break it up a bit. This is where we use things called, these atlases here. They're decals. And if we start, I'll show one to begin with. You've got one here, which is the ventilation flap that we downloaded from Bridge. So this one here, that's it applied there. If we take that and drag it into the viewport, what I suggest you do is put it on the floor to begin with. That way we can begin to orient it in exactly as we want it for our model. I'll put it here. Now it's a stencil, it's a sticker, that we're going to apply to our source model. So it'll appear in the volume. So if you see the green volume, your sticker will stick to whatever appears within that volume. So if I bring it there and then rotate it by 90 degrees and then bring it up and then bring it towards there, you can see we're starting to get it being stuck as a decal to the wall. And there you go. Now, one thing you might want to do is you might want to play around with some of the actual properties here, particularly the decal size. It's somewhat easier to control it that way. So I'll just scale it down, bring it across, and then bring it up, and leave that there. Okay, now that looks fine. I might want to duplicate that, so I'll just Control and Alt, and then just move it straight across so that we're copying it right across to this side. And there you go. We've stuck that onto that part of the mesh. There you go. Now if you press G, it will disappear, and there you go. Okay, so that's one type of decal. It's sort of looking okay. It's fine. Next thing we can do is we can put some sort of cracks, things to break up the surface. So with this one, I'll do the same. I'll put it on the floor just so that I can orient it appropriately, so I know where it is. And then I'm going to rotate it to line it up. Then turn it around by 90 degrees. Bring it into my mesh so that the volume intersects, and you can see that sliding up there. It's sticking, projecting onto the surface, and I might just leave that there and think, yeah, okay, that's cool, we're breaking it up. It might be a bit smaller, so make it smaller. Just don't forget though, you know, sometimes when you bring decals up, they'll give you a weird, because it's projection, you know, they'll stretch across the side like that. So you want to be careful that you're, you know, positioning them appropriately so that they look okay to the camera. You know, but that might be fine. You might say, okay, that's good. So that's certainly another thing that you could do. You could duplicate that. I mean, it will look very similar. You don't want it to tile, so you could just rotate it, bring it up, and then scale it to sort of give it a different look. But you know, you want to be careful that you're not repeating stuff too much. There you go. So we'll put that there and there. Actually, might put it here. Here you go. Okay, so we've got you know, where we've got sort of furnishings on our objects. Now the last thing we can do is we can mess up some of the surfaces, and again, there's lots of these that you can download from Bridge as well. These are streaks, so we can put those there. Oh, not following my own rule again. We'll put them on the floor first, orient them appropriately, and then move them. Rotate them up 90 degrees, depending upon where we want to put them. Bring them up, and then make sure the volume sort of intersects with what we're doing. Now I'm still in sort of game mode, so I'll press G, I'll be able to see the volume. Bring that down a bit, yeah, and sort of put it like that. I might, you know, duplicate that across. I might again scale, make it smaller, bring it up, and yeah, there you go. So slowly, starting to use lots of stickers, lots of decals to sort of break up the uniformity of that thing. It's actually looking, you know, it's a bit repetitive there. So try and scale it a bit more. Bring that down. You got it. All right. Okay. So 3 different things I've added on there, and slowly you can go around and duplicate these, scale, rotate, move, depending upon what it is you want to do. Maybe get a variety of different stickers. Maybe just, you know, group them all out like this. Now, one of the things you can do is, because these are instances, you can open up the properties and then play around, you know, with some of the tiling, some of the spacing. You know, actually make them a bit bigger. You could play around with some of the color overlays, some of the intensity values, maybe increase the normals, which you can find down here, you know, to actually give a bit of more of a grain bump on there. So that's in all of the textures. I mean, you could, if we take that base material here, the surfaces, open up the metal panels, I think it's that one, and then play around with the normal strength. Yeah, you'll be able to see, yeah, things looking a bit stronger. So you can see the difference there between we've got the texture pattern here. You can see that there. Yeah, don't go overboard. You know, it can look quite dodgy when you when things are overdone. Okay, so there you go. That could be your asset, nice and prepared, ready. I could have done a landscape. I could surround it by some foliage, and there you go. That would be my diorama. Now, if I wanted to take a shot, I would just go create a camera here. This is as we've already gone over. Create a cine camera. Let's we'll go custom. Film back. Let's go CinemaScope 35 by 14.89. Okay, we'll swap over to the cine camera so we can see. I'll change the camera lens to a 30mm prime. And I might think, yeah, that's great. That's exactly where I want it. Let's take a little bit. We'll zoom further in, and then we'll decrease the f-stop and play around with the aperture. So we'll bring this close area into focus. So there's our focus plane. We'll bring that right to the front. So we're focusing heavily on this area. The back we're subtly blurring. So I'm bringing that down. I could blur it all the way, but don't want to go too much. We'll just keep it blurred. So this is nice and crisp. This is a bit blurred. Maybe we'll go like this. Just check that. And then bang, once we're happy, we've got our foliage, we've got our landscape, we've got our beautiful sky from the HDI that we've imported. That's our portal, and any other little objects and scene clues that we've handed in and we've put in. Last thing to do is to create a high resolution screenshot. As I said, don't go really above 4. You can produce some really huge images here, and you go right up here, it can crash your computer. So click on that, keep it to 4 depending upon the size of your computer, and then open up screenshot. And there you go, that's one of your images, job done.